Okay. And 407.
Welcome everyone to this show that meeting minutes from the.
We have everybody,
Excuse
Ms. Mackey online.
In,
We have six channels so far.
who do we have? Christensen's online.
We have Tom and we have Kim.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, sorry.
Welcome, everyone. Meeting minutes from what appears to be, no, I'm sorry,
Man,
from May 11th. Is there a motion to approve as drafted?
so moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
A second.
Is there any discussion? Discussion remotely? Seeing none? We do a roll call vote, Mr. Smith.
You can do a roll call vote. It's crucial.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Page,
Yes.
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Hill's not online, correct?
Correct.
And Ms. McNally's not online.
Let me just check one thing. Correct. Okay. Margin Boucher.
Yes.
Abstention.
Bench. Okay. Ms. Labar.
I was not present.
Abstain.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Quimby.
Yes.
Mr. Christensen.
Yes.
Ms. Collins.
You say yes? Okay.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. I think those pass.
It's passed.
Moving right along. Do we have any public participants who?
One attendee. With no name, just phone number.
Okay. Any questions or comments from our public attendee?
Yeah.
I don't see a hand.
Seeing none. Adjourn. Thank you very much.
We'll do a quick schedule update. I'm just going to hit on the key points and then pass it along to the design team because they do have quite a bit to go through today.
Yes. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Just take a step here.
Need more Zoom or is that enough?
I think that's enough.
Thanks. See, are you commenting on my eyesight?
Thank you.
You skip to the next one, Gordon.
And your foot's up.
Now,
Just so you know.
Oh, boy. One messed that up.
That's just a summary. You can-
We'll just summarize here. All right, yeah. So, yeah, thank you, Gordon. So we are happy to report we're still on schedule. There's no big changes to this, so we will breeze through it. We are, as you see, about halfway through the schematic design submittal development. So developing the actual documents that will be going out to the estimators. Committee forum number 5 took place on the 18th of May. And so, like I said, schematic design pricing set, we're going to be completing in early second week of July, send those off to the estimators. And that will start their process. And then when we will reconcile in August, and then that's when we need to, Skanska needs to send a notification to the Mass School Building Authority, basically confirming the budget. It's got to go to them at least 10 days before our submission to them, but we'll get that in as soon as possible. And so from there, we need to get the SBC, your vote to approve the submission to the MSBA. And so we have that taking place in mid-August. And then the schematic design submittal going into the MSBA on August 31st. And so the board meeting for this whole approval, project scope and budget, is not until October 25th, that is. So we wait until that to be completed, and then we start module 5, which is the funding. And the funding, everybody knows, is all aimed at getting the vote situated for November 7th. And then we go on from there. And like I said, nothing has changed on this, so I'll welcome any questions, but this is all information you guys have seen time and time again. So we can skip to the next one, Gordon. Once again, just a more digestible graphic here of the key deadlines coming up in the phase that we're in. July 11th, schematic design cost estimate to the estimators, reconciliation phase, and then your guys' vote. And then once again, all aimed at our submittal to MSBA on August 31st. That is our hard deadline. So
Ben, one question before you move on. The
Absolutely.
previous slide, it looked like we were submitting the OIG on the end of May. So we're 2 weeks past that.
that was the original. Forgive me, I forgot to update this. That was our original goal. I know we ran into, we want to make sure that we're submitting the correct application or applications. So we're going to confirm that with the town. We have Mary McNally trying to line up a meeting with Mary now just to see, the specifics of how that application needs to be scripted and all of that. But I do suspect that we'll be submitting soon, Steve. And that process, the review process from the OIG takes 60 days. I think we do have some time, but let's definitely keep that at the forefront. I'd like
Get 60. The last one I did, I got back in when
you get it.
Okay, so it's a non-issue.
I would say, honestly, it's usually like 2 weeks for me to get the NTP. So I would say it's a non-issue, but let's definitely keep that at the forefront.
And the actual date for the school building committee vote is sort of a window of time. Do we have a specific date set, or do we want to set that?
I don't think that we have set one yet, but I would love to get that on the books.
Because that's pretty critical. Like you said, it's got to be 10 days prior, so we have to get it done between 15th and the 21st or something like that. Is that about right?
I'm sorry.
To approve the school building committee meeting or
To approve the
vote,
schematic
the
design.
schematic designs. What's our window exactly?
Yeah, so it's got to be 10 days before we submit. So that would be the 17th, I think. I just counted quickly. So
17th is a Thursday, 15th is a Tuesday.
And so I guess that depends on when we get that
Okay.
stuff back from our estimators.
Yeah.
I know we're showing kind of right up against it, but the hope obviously to get that with a week play or something like that so we can package it.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the moment we have the reconciliation scheduled for the 14th. That's super tight. But I do, it's worth raising, I guess, a possibility because the 11th to the 10th is the 4-week window is pretty good, pretty generous. We might be able to trim a little bit off of that. But I'm thinking more that we need to come up with a date here as well. So maybe we want to set that up.
The town council vote on anything before it goes? Like if we're waiting for Mrs. McNally to give you information, we don't need to worry about the town council on any of that?
No.
Okay.
What's that, Tuesday, the 15th?
Nice.
I mean, we usually do Thursdays, right? Sorry.
The what?
I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah, but that would be good because I think if we're planning on wrapping our stuff up the week before, I'd rather have it in the beginning of the week. If the 17th is the day, I just want to have
Yeah.
your information and then go send that email that night.
People look at the week of August 14th. 14th is a Monday. Anybody away that week?
Can we do it if we can do Zoom if we're away?
You could probably, we're zooming now, so yeah.
Right. Okay.
So we could do that too, if Tuesday, generally we've been meeting on Thursdays, but if people are willing to give an hour or two of their time on Tuesday, the 15th, maybe we can lock that in. 15th of August. Plan a leadership team meeting and really make it a great day, Frank. And baby,
Just,
I'll be zooming in.
you away that week?
Actually, I don't.
Yes.
Check your
I
calendar.
still might be zooming in anyway, though.
Local actions and approvals cert type
That's,
automatic as well, right?
at 4, Gordon?
4 o'clock, so we're.
Well, I'm asking only because I gotta,
Yeah.
Oh, do you
That
have
would
a
be a complication if there's
You do it?
either a council or a planning board meeting.
good point?
It would be what we did before, just the back to back.
Would 3 be better, Don? Or no?
Not really.
Yeah, I mean, because those.
AC goes back to back.
Six. So if it's just for that vote.
Can
The problem is
we,
I don't have enough Zoom equipment to do both.
Yeah,
those
I
meetings.
see.
can we like try to do it for like the 10th, which is the Thursday before? And then if we can't,
What,
we have a secondary
Don,
date?
what if we meet at Council on Aging?
Still the Zoom that is the issue, right?
Yeah,
There.
well, yeah.
Could have his equipment over.
have to break. No, you will have it there.
No, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
And I don't know right now if that's a date for either one of those boards.
So if we plan for 4 o'clock and if they're going to meet, we'll meet at Council on Aging. If they don't, we can meet here. Does that work? Make sense, Don?
I have to post it. I have to post it somewhere.
Well, but you'll know. We'll
No,
know.
no, but the town, you have to post where.
Yeah, I know. So
He'll know by
when
us.
they decide if they're going to have a meeting, we'll decide where ours will be, if that works. Yes,
Can we do 3?
3 o'clock?
3 would,
It's fine.
3 would save me a lot of stress.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sure.
that's what we're here for, Don. See? No,
No, it isn't, but.
I get it. I appreciate your, I'm glad you're here for your input.
On the 50th.
3 o'clock on the 15th, possibly here, possibly at the Council of Aging. Is that working for people?
Yep.
Are folks online? Does that work? 3 o'clock, August 15th? Got a thumbs up on Tom,
Thumbs up on Kim.
Okay.
thumbs up on Kim.
Do you want to just plan to have it at Council on Aging, whether they're there or not, just so we have a place?
It is very luxurious.
Yeah, we can show everybody off. It's nice, it's nice.
It's nice.
See?
All right.
Can I ask a quick question? If the issue is tech, with Don, if that's what I'm hearing, could we, Skanska, bring another laptop and just run the Zoom on that and just.
It doesn't go on
throwing
LCAP,
it out.
right?
Yeah, it's.
It's me recording it and recording the stream and
Oh,
having
okay.
each other.
I see.
Yeah, we'll just go to Council on Aging.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say field trip.
Change of pace.
And Gordon, like I was starting to say, I don't want to scare anybody. It will be posted as 2 meetings. It's going to mirror kind of like submissions of past where we're going to have the one meeting, end it, and then start up the next one. That's not a reflection of how long it's actually going to take. It's just how it's going to be set up.
We won't have copier equipment though there,
Whose copiers there?
unless Ryan's with us. And then,
You get a little time to plan. Let me
okay.
brainstorm around that.
We have Ryan with us. We're good. Okay.
That's who I'm brainstorming with.
Okay. Council on Aging, we'll schedule that August 15th, 3 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Next slide.
That's me. So a good number of this committee came last Wednesday. It was just last week for the Eco Charrette, and it was a small group, but I think the team really got some important feedback, and we had a really good conversation about sustainability issues, resiliency issues, and so again, this was the goal of the Eco Charrette was to hit these targets, to talk about sustainability from a general standpoint, understand what our requirements are from code and MSBA, and talk a little bit about LEED and what that means to the project. Talking about opportunities for the project and, again, with the idea that goals start to rise to the top. And I think if you go to the next slide, we did kind of capture under these sort of larger topics some elements that this particular group or the group of participants really started to home in on and express more concern or interest in. And so with respect to site and transportation and water, a lot of talk around EV charging, excitement about the outdoor classroom opportunities, connection to nature, use of the site for, educational purposes. With respect to energy efficiency and climate, the ability to use the new building, which will have heating and cooling as, cooling and warming center opportunities. The excitement around this group's willingness and interest to include PV in the project and, what that's going to mean. And of course, a commitment to the all electric or where the code is pushing us George said, I think that's 100% cooling, not 0% cooling. And then
So we have now.
exactly.
You want to be better than now.
And the increased ventilation and how that affects, health and prevention of bad things like mold buildup. And then we actually did have quite a good conversation around sustainable materials. Is there a way to kind of think about some reuse of things, but really, talking about sustainable materials that are not only have a sustainable composition, but don't off gas. Views to the outdoors. We had a lot of conversation around windows and operability, the ability to open windows and get fresh air. And there was interest in biophilia, bringing plants inside. And I thought that was kind of an interesting thing for the team to be thinking about and potentially bring into the project. You can go to the next. And then again, overall, we see the project as, the third teacher or the building as a learning vessel, a learning machine, increasing awareness and plugging to recycling, which having Lori there was great, learning about how the kitchen operation works and the composting that you're already doing. So just enhancing and daylighting all of these things you're already doing, but also being able to use the building to really plug into sustainable goals. Being able to see how the building is functioning. That picture in the bottom right is all about building metrics and seeing energy use. And exposing what's typically hidden, allowing the building to be one of your learning tools or teaching tools. So, again, small group, but really good conversation. And, we'll pick this up again in design development, which we know we're going to be doing starting in November, and try to plug back in with student groups again, because I think this is a tough time of year for them. So,
did you have any students attend?
We did not. There were a few, I think, in the library space before it started. And they said we have too much work right now. But they had lots of great questions. Yeah, always have great energy. So next go around.
To advertise the snacks better.
I think the best way to get student engagement at ELHS is to come hang out, sit in the hallway, and just talk to people when they walk by.
Yeah.
We have great conversations every time we're here, but it's always on the unscheduled side.
And I know you miss out on having more townspeople come in if it's earlier in the day, but if you really want to hear what the kids have to say, it's got to be before the bell rings.
Yeah.
Far more amicable.
Yeah. And again, we have had some great formalized conversations during class time. So that seems, you're right. That's really the best way.
Yeah. I think going in between, we thought was really smart to get everybody, but live and learn.
Oh, yeah.
So.
But that said, the people that were there, I think almost every one of them, even if they worked in the town or they live in town.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's still, we've all got different thoughts on how to go about it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I wanted to say before we jump in on this one that the next slide that this is going to be a long meeting in that this is an opportunity for us to bring in the powerhouse behind this project, which are the engineers at SMMA. And remember, one of the reasons why we came together as a team for this is because SMMA has such depth on high school projects in Massachusetts. And we are always filtering the content that they give us and presenting a lot of it. And they're an amazing team. And in previous estimating processes, the estimators are going based on common assumptions and narratives. But today is an important opportunity for us to have the engineers from SMMA tell you more about the systems that we are taking that are now, they'll be providing quite a bit more detail into this estimate set. So we really think it's important that you know and hear from them directly about the systems. And unfortunately, that can be a little bit hard to get through quickly, but we really wanted to make
they can do it. They've been they're all over it. So without further ado, I believe we have Andy up first, and some of you who were at the Eco Charrette. So Andy Olderman is our mechanical engineer. Lana worked on the study phase. He and Lana worked together with Andy. Then we have Stella Drizzen, our electrical engineer, and Paul Elliott, who will talk to plumbing and fire protection. But here's Andy.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for giving us some time today. So I'm seeing an image of myself and not the slideshow itself.
Okay.
Gordon, are you putting the slides up?
Slides are up.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Andy, that's my fault because I'm showing you to them, but I really need to be showing things to you.
That's all right.
He's got it memorized.
I have it up on my screen, but.
Nope.
There you go.
Okay, so I know, in speaking with Lana, who went through the prior phase of the project with you, they came out of that phase thinking that we were going to go with a VRF kind of air-cooled heat pump system. We're in the schematic design phase, and in accordance with MSBA requirements, we do have to study 3 options. We would recommend that anyways. This is the part of that project where that happens. I've got about 11 slides to run through with you right now to cover these 3 options for possible mechanical systems. All 3 have a few things in common. They're all electric. That is where the new energy code that comes into play in July is pointing us. And there are some other similarities we can talk about, but that's probably the most important one. All 3 systems are promoting, fully conditioned building heating and cooling. And so let's go to that first slide. So the first system type is it's the air source VRF heat pump system. So this is akin to these ductless splits that we've all seen everywhere, mounted on the wall. It's kind of a larger commercial version of that. And this diagram is meant to just show you how that system kind of comes together to serve the spaces. So the rooftop heat pump units labeled as VRF ACCUs in the top middle there, those are sort of the power behind the heating and cooling that's provided in the classrooms, admin spaces, and similar spaces like that. So they all have refrigerant piping that comes down from them and gets distributed to individual fan coil units. So a typical classroom is going to have a dedicated fan coil unit that's supported by those rooftop heat pump units. And that's going to recirculate air from the classroom, condition it to provide either heating or cooling. And there's a thermostat in the space that controls that system. There's also rooftop dedicated outdoor air systems, DOAS for short. So that's basically a 100% outside air system that provides filtered and conditioned outdoor air. It's also drawing exhaust air out of the building. And so it's pulling the energy from the exhaust, transferring it to the supply, and then that air comes into the building as conditioned air. You see in that sort of light blue bar, that's meant to represent the main ductwork in the building. And then we have VAV boxes, which throttle that ventilation air depending on the carbon dioxide levels in an individual space. So there's a carbon dioxide sensor on the wall. We give it a set point above which we don't want it to go, and that controls how much ventilation air goes into the classroom. I'm going to show you also a little bit more about some of the pieces and parts of the system in the next couple slides. Next slide, please. So these are those dedicated outdoor air system units. So in the bottom right, that's kind of a schematic of it. It's all the moving parts in there, which I'm not going to really get into. But the important thing is that it's providing a really good level of filtration of that outdoor air. It's got that energy recovery wheel that I mentioned that kind of transfers air energy from the exhaust air to the outdoor air to help condition it before we actually mechanically cool it or heat it. And then, as I mentioned, those VAV boxes, which are essentially a damper, which throttles the air, or it'll open to let more air in, or throttle to reduce the air based on carbon dioxide levels. Next slide, please. So this diagram's a little bit just the relationship of the pieces and parts of the VRF system. So in that diagram on the right, you see that outdoor unit. So those are the rooftop heat pump units. And those are connected through a pair of pipes down to the system that's served in the building. So the school is going to be a fairly sizable school. So there's going to be a number of these outdoor units that are kind of zoned. You might feed a group of 6 or 7 classrooms off of a single rooftop unit. And then you've got all that refrigerant piping distributing to the various fan coils serving the individual classrooms. Now, an important thing to note here is we're proposing a type of system that would allow for individual classrooms to be in different modes at the same time. So if you're in a shoulder season like spring or fall, and depending on what your exposure is, to the sun, you might have one classroom in a zone that's getting sun that might need cooling, and then another classroom on the other side of the wing that might want heating. So this system will be allowed to have both of those classrooms satisfied, one to be in cooling and one to be in heating. And the nice thing about the system is that it sort of exchanges energy through the refrigerant that's all piped through this zone, so that it's kind of sharing the heat rejected from one classroom to provide it to another classroom that's looking for heat. So that's a energy efficiency feature. Next slide, please. And this diagram again is showing you some of the pieces and parts, and then kind of in diagramming on the left side there how a typical classroom is served. This is what you might see on our plan drawings that we are producing later in the design process. Next slide, please. The second system we're looking at is a geothermal system, and so that uses the ground as a different sort of heat sink than the air. The system we just looked at takes advantage of the air, whether it's winter air or summer air. There's a pretty vast range in temperature there. The ground source system operates off sort of a tighter band of temperature range. At a certain level below the permafrost or below the frost line, the ground is usually at a temperature of in the low 50s, and so that's a pretty reliable source of energy exchange for this kind of system. So what we would do is we would have a network of vertical boreholes. We'd drill down about 500 feet. You put a pair of pipes in there, and you do a number of these boreholes, and you link them all together, bring them into a mechanical room, and then you pump that water out to the various heat pumps that we're showing, serving the classroom, serving maybe the media center, guidance and admin, all those different spaces. So it's basically a network of water pipes that are running around and providing that heat exchange from the heat pumps that serve an individual classroom to basically the earth. Next slide, please. Give you a little bit more insight into the geothermal aspect itself. So on the far right side of the diagram, you see a kind of a schematic view of a typical individual borehole. So this is a hole that might be about 8 inches in diameter, goes about 500 feet deep, and you insert a pair of pipes that are joined at the bottom so that the water would go in one pipe and out the other, and that you can sort of see that in that bottom left photo. You see a pair of pipes coming out of there, and then the space between that hole in the ground and the pipes gets filled with what's called a grout. It's sort of a conductive concrete material. So that improves that energy exchange with the earth. And so this is kind of the vehicle that the geothermal system relies on. Next slide, please. And just to give you a sense, looking at a site plan such as it is at this moment, the possible location for a geothermal field would be in an area of the property which is within the buffer lines that are governed by CONCOM and authorities having jurisdiction. We want to stay out of the area, obviously, of the new construction. We need to stay away from the existing school, which is going to continue in operation. And so I've kind of outlined in green, at least preliminarily, my thought on where the geothermal field could go. We're still working on how big that field might need to be, how many boreholes would be required. All all that stuff at the end of this, toward the end of the schematic design phase, maybe in the next few weeks, will get described and packaged together in a write-up that goes to our cost estimator so he can tell us how much these various systems are going to cost. So that's the geothermal system. Next slide, please. The third system is, I guess, a variation on the geothermal. In place of an outside geothermal field, we have instead these, well, pardon the name, it's kind of clunky, but they're air-cooled heat recovery chillers. So they're basically an air-cooled heat pump outside that can generate either warm water or chilled water, depending on the season or the need. And those would generate heating or cooling, and that would be transferred to an indoor water loop, similar to the indoor water loop we had in the geothermal system. And that water loop would be connected to different heat pumps throughout the building, serving individual classrooms and admin spaces, et cetera. And again, you've kind of seen it in all these images. All these three systems rely on those dedicated outdoor air units to provide the conditioned ventilation air to the building. Those units are also a heat pump type of unit, so it's using electricity to generate heating or cooling to condition that air. I should also mention that the sorry, I lost my train of thought. Next slide, please. I'll come back to it. Again, the pieces and parts of that air source chill water system, basically how it, it operates similar to the heat pump in the VRF option, to use the air as a heat sink to either, pull heat out of it or reject heat to it, depending on whether you're in heating or cooling mode. Next slide, please. So kind of put together a little matrix of pros and cons. And, that top system, which is, being identified as current basis of design, that is what came out of the last PSR phase. But again, we're looking at each of these three systems. Geothermal is typically a more expensive option. The installation of that geothermal field is, can be pretty costly. There are a lot of incentives to be had depending on when the project happens. Those incentives tend to come and go, but we're looking at those and we're going to factor those into the life cycle cost analysis that we're doing. So each of these three systems is being modeled in our energy modeling software to estimate their annual consumption. And so that gets factored into a life cycle costs analysis, so we can factor not only the first cost for installation, but the annual operating costs, maintenance costs, and life cycle costs. So if over a 50-year period, if we end up having to replace certain equipment, we're going to factor in those costs. And then we'll look at each of these three options as sort of a total cost of ownership over a 50-year period in net present value terms. And that's how, we'll present these three options to you again later in July to help us make a final decision on a system. So that's the end of my piece.
Do we want to entertain questions by discipline, or should we just kind of go through and circle back?
It's going to be a lot to absorb. I'm going to be by discipline.
Okay.
Feels like.
Okay. Questions for Andy?
When the pricing comes back, I think I'll have a lot of questions. I'll be all over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Understood.
So in the geothermal, it says requires a backup. Which we hadn't necessarily, I didn't know that was a situation. So
yeah, but
it's even more cost.
The one on the bottom does too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, options 2 and 3 are similar that way. Basically, you want to have some sort of standby capacity in case you have some sort of an equipment issue outside.
For the VRF, I guess I do have a question. What happens when one of those units goes down, like in a classroom? Well, I know that you saw the ambient air from like all around you, but is that a problem with these? Like,
Well, I will say
it's better than a whole boiler going down, but
true. They're So if you have a problem, like sometimes what can happen is in that outdoor equipment, you could get a compressor failure. So those outdoor units have, more than one compressor in them. They have, 2 or 4, depending on the size of the system. And sometimes you can lose a compressor. Compressors don't like to cycle on and off a lot. And sometimes if you have that kind of occurrence, then, you can suddenly find yourself without a compressor, and you might have difficulty maintaining temperature in the classrooms that zone serves. We've had some experience with that. Part of that experience is kind of, first of all, we would specify that spare compressors are kind of bought up front, and so they're stored on site, and so that there's not any lag time, and it's just more or less arranging with a contractor to get that changed out.
One of these forms, one of these forms more like when we discussed at that meeting we went to, or the school we visited, they were talking about how you're kind of stuck with one person to do all your repairs because you're under contract. Are all of these going to be like that? Is that where we are now?
Yeah, all the systems are in a similar boat that way. I know a lot of school systems don't really have onboard maintenance staff to do a lot of, sophisticated maintenance. Some towns do. If you do, then, they could be trained to do a certain amount of maintenance. But otherwise, what I would expect is, that they're changing air filters and doing basic stuff like that. And they're at least watching the system to see, to be alerted to a problem before they hear a complaint.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Can you explain the wintertime defrost cycle as a comment?
Yes. So the air source VRF, so that relies on a heat pump that's probably going to be roof mounted. And if you could imagine, we're using a refrigerant system to pull heat out of the air, even if that air might be, say, 20 degrees. What can happen is, especially between the 20 and 40 degree range of outdoor temperatures, there are periods every hour where the condenser coil on that outdoor heat pump has to go into defrost mode so that the coil itself doesn't frost up. And so what happens is the compressors stop providing heat to the equipment they're currently serving. And that, so if they're serving a bunch of fan coil units in a classroom wing, then those fan coil units stop getting heat. The system operates in reverse to essentially pull heat out of the system and defrost the coil. And it runs that way for about 5 minutes, and then it goes back to normal. Now, for indoor systems like these fan coil units, that's not been problematic in our experience. But where it's more problematic is where we use that kind of outdoor heat pump to serve a coil in an air handling unit. That's a different story, because then suddenly that air handling unit is blowing cold air. But for spaces, the school is going to have a certain amount of kind of temperature resilience, because the envelope is going to have a pretty high level of insulation in it. Your windows are going to be triple glazed. And so there's a lot more capability to ride out any event, including a loss of power.
Thank you.
On mechanical, should we move on to electrical? Okay, Stella, you're up.
Here I am. I'm Stella Jason, electrical engineer with Sims McKee for the last 30-something years. Do you want me to share my screen? I don't know. So I could.
It's up here.
Is that possible?
We can see it.
It's broadcast up here, Stella.
So we cannot share. Okay. All right. Well, I can see myself.
I'm in there. Hang on.
Oh, hold on.
Zoom in so you can see the slide. There we go.
Closer.
Make it bigger, Stella.
I can still see myself.
Yeah, I know.
And only half of my text.
There it is.
There you go.
Okay.
Change too.
All right. Perfect. So, hi. So since this is the first introduction of the electrical systems, I'll go like high level, what we are, what systems, we're implementing in our design, where we're suggesting to implement in our design. And of course, we're implementing LED interior and exterior lighting, which is expected to bring us the bring you to extreme energy efficiency and high lumens per dollar. What we're also bringing into design is the wireless network lighting control system, which actually is required by IEC, which is an energy code, international energy code, and also ASHRAE. Also, we're putting occupancy, vacancy sensors, daylight sensors, time schedule controls, 0-10 dimming for lighting. We also bring in what we call plug load control system. I'll get into that following slides. We'll explain what that means, but it is actually turning on and off individual receptacles based on room vacancies. So that's additional measure of energy savings. We also put energy metering and monitoring system. We're collecting information, collecting, recording kWh consumption and also demand and other electrical data, and it's collecting continuously, and it's connected to building management system for creating all kinds of reports at any time. What we also implementing what's called demand response sequence of operations. It's a protocol that is incorporated into building management system. What it does, it facilitates the electrical load reduction during demand response events. What it means that either facilities or the utility companies, when they have this protocol in place, they can request a temporary load consumption reduction and other energy saving measures. And all these control and monitoring systems, they're all integrated with building management system. We call it DDC system. What we're also implementing into design is obviously electric vehicle charging stations. We'll get into that too. And photovoltaic rooftop system. Next page, please. So now, like again, high level. So the service and power distribution system. So the components of that. So the power distribution, so the electrical service obviously will be coming from National Grid. It will be a new service. The existing service will stay in place because the existing school will operate during construction. So the new transformer will be installed, the new service will be provided. I'm already in contact with National Grid. There's already the work order, they call it work request, initiated. I'm already submitting documents to them. So the service from the new transformer will be extended to the new building, to the main switchboard, and from the main switchboard, this is the big piece on the, I wish I could point to it, but it's in the right top corner. The main switchboard will distribute power through all the, what we call small power and lighting panels, and through the step-down transformer. So this is what we call the normal power distribution system. We will also have an emergency power distribution system, which is a backup power, which is coming from the emergency generator. That would be on the next slide. I will get to that. And then we will also have another source of power, which is the PV system that we will implement. We're trying to implement it in design. So that would be a rooftop system. That would be a switchboard that will be collecting the power from the roof PV panels. There will be interconnecting between the electrical service and the PV service, and there will be extended to the school. And what you see right between the transformer, it's at the bottom, and the PV panels right in the middle, the bright vertical thing, this is the EV charging station. The one that is shown here, it's a dual station, which means 2 cars can be charging at the same time. Under LEED, we are obligated to provide minimum 2% of spots of the total number of spots. But then also by stretch code, we need to provide ready spaces up to 10. So we will install 5 dual stations to heat 2%, and then we will provide power for future EV stations for another 8% to make it 10 total. Next page, please. Yeah, if we could just shrink it a little bit so it all fits. Oh, the beauty of that. Okay, so this is the standby power. This is the backup. So since the HVAC system and portion of, well, or maybe all of it, the plumbing system is all electric, but especially because of the HVAC, it's a heating system, and we need to provide power to prevent freezing. It's a large power that we need backup. The generator will be a large size, so don't be surprised. We are estimating it at approximately 800 to 900 kW generator. It will be diesel-fired generator with fuel tank for 24 hours. And it will feed, it will be source backup for emergency life safety loads. And in this case, this is the emergency egress lighting, exit signs, also fire pump, if we will have fire pump. I don't know if we know that for sure yet. And also fire alarm system. And also what we call standby optional systems, and that's the majority would go to heating system and associated pumps and controls. Also the cooling system for MDF, IDF rooms, also the refrigeration equipment, also the elevator, also the sewage ejection, sump pump, heat trace, whatever we will have. Also the water service booster, you don't see it, it's right below that line, but I see it on my other screen. I can read it. Also, limited lighting and small power, we usually put in administration and nurse medical area. Also suggest public address and telephone system, security system, and building management system. So these loads we usually suggest to put on the emergency generator backup. Next page, please.
We need the certain water.
Yeah, plenty pressure.
If we could shrink it a little bit. Perfect, perfect, thank you. So lighting, again, high level. So of course we will be using high efficiency LED lighting, interior and exterior, and we will be using wireless network lighting control system. We will be putting in measures like daylight harvesting, meaning that we will have daylight sensors, and the lights that are closer to windows or skylights there will be dimming, automatically dimming down. We will also have time controls and occupancy sensors. So when spaces are not occupied, or so lights will shut off, or spaces, larger spaces that are irregular shape or too large, instead of occupancy sensors, we have time control program, which can be override if you need to extend time. Those would be on time. So devices that you're looking at the top, these are the occupancy sensors, daylight sensors, and the lighting control. They wirelessly communicate through hubs, and they're all connected to building management systems for monitoring controls, and you can override it if the time for a particular day needs to be different for some reason. Next page, please. And this is what I mentioned before, plug load controls. What it means, at the very bottom in the middle, you see the receptacle kind of like pulled out, and there's a little device behind it. So this device is connected before the receptacle, and then you also see on the right side, there's red and blue dots. So by blue dots, we're showing devices that are not controlled, and by red dots, they're devices that will have those little plug load controllers connected. So basically what we're trying to do, minimum 50% of all receptacles we will control on off. But we're actually going for much higher than 50%. We're actually going like up to 70% or so all over the building. Why? Because when space is not occupied and the loads are not critical, they don't need to stay overnight, we want them to turn off when space is not occupied, or when space is not occupied. So either by occupancy sensor that we already have in the room that already controls lights. So we're using this same device. So it wirelessly communicate with lights and also with those receptacles, and they shut them off. So, but the receptacles that are controlled, we're obligated by code to mark them so people are not confused and not plug something that is actually critical in those devices. So there is a symbol by code. It's a little like power, a symbol. So you see it on the receptacle. So you know not to plug anything critical in this device because you know it's controlled somehow, whether by occupancy sensor or by the time. Next page, please. As I said, high level. So what else is in under electrical fire alarm system? So what we are designing is the addressable fire alarm system with evacuation, with voice evacuation system. So we'll have speaker strobes. So you actually can hear the pre-recorded either sound or announcement. And also you can pick up a handset and well, not you, but fire chief or firefighters, they can pick up a handset and make a special announcement. So there will be all addressable devices. So when you get to the fire alarm panel, it says particular device at particular space is an alarm. And all fire protection devices or equipment will be connected to the fire alarm control panel as well. That's it. High level.
Questions for Stella?
The demand response sequence of operations, can the utility company, they put a request in, or they can actually control our system?
It's both, but they actually will be able to control.
So if we have a demand, if there's a high demand day and we open the high school as a cooling shelter, they can say, you're using too much power and shut off our power. Now we don't have AC.
Well, it It's not exactly like that. It's not like we can tell them, it's a sequence of operation. You can tell them what you will, you only are obligated 10%, not more than 10%. So it's actually, you're not be shut down all cooling.
So did you say lighting in like classrooms or something?
Yeah, 10%. And you're writing what exactly would hit 10%.
So we would set up,
It's your choice.
and then they trigger it remotely?
They can trigger it remotely. But as far as I know, there are pretty much no utility companies that are ready to do that yet. But we're designing it knowing that when this when this time comes, you're ready to do that. So in LEED, there are 2 credits. So if utility company is already ready for that, you can go for 2 credits. But there is no school yet so far that we designed. We went for 2 credits, which means we only go for 1 credit, which means that none of utility companies actually, or majority of utility companies, not National Grid, not Eversource, are ready for that.
On the generator, you said it was an 8,900 kW unit?
8,900.
Who?
800 to 900.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, 9 kilowatt.
800 or 900 kW.
Okay.
Pretty large. I wanted you to hear it earlier in design.
Right. Is there any way to switch that out to natural gas? I know you don't get as much, you got to get a bigger unit, obviously a little bit bigger based on the natural gas source. But is that possible to get a natural gas instead of, like you said, the DPW is the one that goes around and fills all the diesel tanks. We have 17 sites now with generators. So in a power outage or a major catastrophe, all we'll be doing is running around filling fuel tanks.
Right now.
Okay.
Maybe we
things
could
I
do
want to explain on the gas. A couple of things I want to explain on the gas. So gas, first of all, is not considered a reliable source. So because we have life safety and standby, so the life safety especially, so the gas is not considered as a reliable source. So the authority having jurisdiction would have to agree with gas to be a source for the generator that actually supports life safety loads. This is one. Second, I know that cost of the generator itself over, I believe, 200 or 150 kW, the cost of the generator on gas is substantially high, of the generator itself is substantially higher. It's going exponentially comparing to diesel. The cost of the generator itself.
You have a tanker truck, you fill in these.
I don't even know if they make it a gallon tank.
Up to 200, they're almost like the same, the cost of the generator. And then the gas cost is going like, and this is diesel. But in general, can we go gas? Absolutely. If authority, what we call authority have a jurisdiction, building inspector will say, yes, I approve it as a reliable source, because gas,
Thank you.
If there would be just standby, no one has to say anything.
I had a question about the plugs. So you're saying that in any given classroom, there'll be a certain amount of plugs that won't, like, if no one's in the classroom, the plugs aren't on. How much energy does that save? I guess I feel like, especially a science classroom, you might have the fish tank, you might have this, you might have that. And these are things that have to go all the time, right? But then you got to play with the plugs. So how much energy does that save?
It saves a lot. And we have energy model. We have a group that are specifically working on energy model, and they put input, and we actually attack every classroom and space differently. So we actually put a program in every space. So we know the program in the space. And if we know there is a fish tank or there is a computer or overnight something, we specifically leave those and we mark them NC, not controlled, and we know those locations. We actually go through design through every single space, making sure that we're leaving appropriate amount of not controlled devices.
Okay, thank you. I'm just thinking, because like I know I'm in a classroom right now, different district, where it's a smaller ILC classroom and the kids all have computers, but they don't have a computer thing and they're plugged in all over overnight. So, you know, we need to think about that because obviously we do have the chargers, but not, and I'm just using it as one example I could think of off the top of my head.
In the building management system, you can set, so obviously things will change over the life of the building, and the building management system will be able to override the automatic controls and say that outlet should always be on. And we need another IT guy.
You can always change the program. You can always change the program. But if it says not controlled, it never went through the program. So you need to connect it and then disable it first. And then you can put it back on the program. You know what I mean? Like if we only connect those that originally say programmed.
But so if there's a controlled outlet in 15 years, we want to make sure that that outlet is always on now. Can we set that in the building maintenance system, building management system?
You would have to do some rewiring.
Oh, the system won't, you can't override it. Wow.
That's kind of like lights in Wilbraham.
I will tell you that this is again a requirement.
Right.
In the school we're currently working on.
It's not significant rewiring because the beauty of wireless systems, there's no connection, there's no hardwired connection between this device behind it because it only talks wirelessly. There's power coming to the receptacle, but the device connection,
right,
the control, they speak wirelessly through little antennas.
You know what I'm picturing, like in the 1960s when you had the one plug with all the things coming out of it? I see this happening in classrooms. I do.
How fast does the room, how fast do the receptacles come up when the room becomes active again? So if it's inhabited, it shuts down.
Immediately, she's.
It's immediately, yeah.
Right, that sensor.
So it is becoming a kind of a design.
Sensors just die.
It's becoming a design challenge to try and anticipate the problems this will cause. I can't say that this isn't challenging. We have the demand for more outlets in classrooms because of what you're talking about, Beth.
Yeah.
So we are asking for more outlets, and then we're having to sit and design carefully where are they least likely to be needed, so that we can kind of peripherally indicate those and show what those are, because you have to have a certain amount of these go off. It's a kind of a double-edged sword, because then you actually have to ask for enough outlets to be sure that you have enough.
Right.
And then be sure that you've mapped all of those printers, copiers, fish tanks, et cetera, carefully. So it's
So moving equipment around, so moving equipment around.
But the reason
not
they're doing
something
it-
you can do really, but you
And
can.
control essentially, and
right.
no, we move the copier over here, so now that one's gotta be live. Now you have to have the electrician come, pull the outlet out, pull that little controller out, and put the outlet back in, and move that controller to the other outlet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of like in the building management system, say this outlet should now always be on.
Yeah.
Was it a percentage of all the outlets?
I believe it is. But,
It's minimum 50% energy code.
50%.
It's an obligation.
They try to go to
Minimum
70%.
50%, yes.
Trying to go to 70%.
Yeah, because they had three red to 2 blue in each room.
50 minimum, right? But to do the lead credits, the energy model, we need more than that.
Is that a credit that we can revisit, or given the concern, is that something that you can look at to see how critical that 50 to 70% credit is? Stella?
We can look when we will go deeper into energy model. We can define exactly the amount that we need.
MSBA limits the amount of receptacles we're allowed per room. Is that what
No.
It says leads.
This is a
limits.
And well, the networking is a code issue now that we have to have this But the jump from 50 to 70 is a credit for a lead that we have identified. It's typical for schools to try and aim for. The whole lead system is flexible. So, if it's absolutely not, then we try and find it in another way, but that's why the jump beyond. Again, a lot of this is about powering off when the school's not occupied. So,
Right. The intent is good. It just requires a lot more careful planning.
Yeah.
And yes, you might have.
You end up putting more receptacles in though. It just doesn't, I don't think it has a desired effect.
Sure, because if you put in 10 receptacles, 5 aren't going to work when you're not in there. But if you put in 20, which is going to cost more money, 10 will work.
Yeah.
Which does that not make sense? Like,
in between periods.
We definitely don't double it, but we definitely try and anticipate, the headache.
is this part of the new code that happened at the beginning of this year that we had the discussion that was kiboshed and we should have thought about that? I'm just saying it. So here we go. It's frustrating because I think that these are all wonderful things, but you never want to buy the first year of a vehicle because you're going to end up with an Edsel. And this is what concerns me moving forward, that some of this technology has only been used for a few years, I'm guessing, and to put it into such a big expense for us, I want to save electricity. I don't want to throw money away, but it's a little bit, it really makes you sit and pause for a moment. Now, if we did, I know we can't afford geothermal, but say for something the numbers come in, do you get more credits for that over, or which one of those 3 systems, do you get more credits for one of those over another?
No, it's about.
So there's no way to play it
against the baseline. And I don't think we should drill into,
I'm not gonna, yeah.
No, we're noting your concern and we have the same ones on our other projects. So I think that we still have plumbing and fire protection to get to. No, there'll be more about this, and this is the first time you've been able to.
Come on, electrical, it's exciting, but it's not new. I was just going to say,
it's thinking about time.
It's great
I
that we
still
have
wanted to
engineers
respond to, is it new? No, it's not new. It's the same one. It's not the new code. No, it's the same it was the same in the previous code.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Stella. That's helpful. All right, Paul, are you still there?
I'm here. I thought I had till 6. I don't have till 6.
I know everybody, all my engineers said. All right. Are we ready to change disciplines? Okay. Paul, take it away.
No problem. I'll try to be quick. I know everyone has time things. I like this picture. I know it's a little distorted, but this is what we've been seeing from plumbing contractors in the field now. This is from a school project currently under construction. They do these prefabricated toilet chases, wet walls within their shop, and then they wheel them in, drop them down, and then pipe them up.
Nice. Start off with a bang. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I've never seen it.
All right, next slide, please.
Next slide.
All right. Plumbing fixtures. There's been a big push towards sensor faucets and sensors, hands-free. One of the things we're seeing in every school now is the bottle fillers. It's no brainer not to have those, honestly. You still need the high-low for ADA and for the plumbing code requirements.
Yep.
For flushing, there's dual flush, there's sensor, there's hardwired. Because of the batteries, technology getting better and better, we're typically seeing battery operated now instead of the hardwired. So you don't have the transformers and other wiring involved. Mop sink, one thing we've been seeing a lot as well is chemical mixing at the mop sinks. If that does occur, we will need a backflow preventer in that room to protect the water supply from backflow. Next slide, please.
Each closet.
For the water heaters, we've been seeing either triplex or duplex in electric. The electric is going along with the sustainability and the energy code and the electrification. So we have been seeing all electric for the water heaters. For the hot water system itself, there are a couple different ways. One way is to have individual water heaters at fixture groups. The other way is a centralized system with a recirculated loop. That's the system we've typically been seeing now because you have the water heaters are in a mechanical room and all the maintenance is in one area. Instead of having smaller electric water heaters all in various spots around the building. Next slide, please. Some typical equipment as far as maintenance, grease interceptors. The plumbing code does require interior ones at triple pot sinks and other kitchen fixtures. The exterior, I have yet to see a jurisdiction that does not want an exterior before it ties into the city system. It is up to the Board of Health, but I would be surprised if they don't require one at the exterior. Water outlets, wall hydrants, freeze-proof wall hydrants around the perimeter of the building, and interior hose bibs in toilet rooms, mechanical rooms, and other areas. The trap primer, it's shown with the copper piping there. That's to feed floor drains that don't normally get enough use. All the floor drains have a trap similar to under your sink at home. And the water from the trap primer, it shoots a little bit of water in that trap to keep that trap sealed so that you don't get any sewer gases in the building. Next slide, please. Emergency equipment in the science classrooms. We would have emergency shower, eye wash. At some of the sinks, you would as well, just in case there's any chemical spills or anything. We also see the eye washes at art room sinks because of the paint materials that they can use, and also in the nurses station, nurse area. And they do have recessed lab units instead of the exposed. However, there is a cost and premium for those. So typically we don't see them too often in schools, but it is out there.
Admiring it.
Next slide, please. And on the sprinkler side, it will be a fully protected building in accordance with the building code and NFPA 13. There are some exceptions that would be utilized, such as the elevator hoistway, small electrical rooms that are rated, elevator machine rooms. But even though those exceptions are allowed, the building would still be considered fully sprinklered. In areas where there's finished ceilings, they'd be concealed, and then uprights are exposed in areas that are open to the structure. And in the kitchen, there will be exhaust systems are typically provided with an ANSEL or wet dry chemical system. That would be by the kitchen consultant. And that's it.
True to his word.
Right. Any questions on plumbing or fire protection scope?
I did have a question on the sensor units that you talked about with batteries.
Yes.
Which units have the batteries? Like all the units?
Toilets.
Is it
the toilets? The lavatories or the sinks would have one too if they're sensor faucets. So those would have a battery as well. Some of them have. There are technology. Oh, sorry.
No, I just have a flashback of custodians changing batteries constantly, like with paper towel dispensers and things. So I just was curious on that.
Yeah, some of the manufacturers now are saying that the batteries are 10 to 15 year life.
Yeah, like all the clocks that we put in 5 years ago are battery of the last high school clock upgrade.
That's nice to hear because it probably was about 5 years ago that I'm referring to, 5 to 6 maybe. Good.
It actually made me think about it.
Thank you.
For ordering batteries.
Second question I had, the custodian area, do they have an eye wash area also?
I apologize, I didn't hear the first part.
The custodial area, like would they have an eye wash place also for like, because the chemicals that they use?
Typically, we don't see them in the janitor's closets. I haven't been seeing them. That is a good point. If there's chemicals, maybe it might be below a certain quantity where you wouldn't. If it's just household chemicals or just for washing floors, the quantity might be low enough that you don't necessarily need the emergency eye wash or shower.
Do we currently have them, Pam?
I feel like we do. Do we in the custodial?
I don't think we do in the custodial closets.
You don't think so?
No. We don't have backflow preventers either.
Okay.
Do you have the chemical mixing in those ones that don't have the backflows?
No, the chemical mixing is all contained in one.
Units that are they come together.
Is all they do is
if anything, you should have them in the custodial mop sink areas where
That's exactly what
that's
I'm
not
referring to.
the receiving.
Yeah.
For the hot water systems, has heat pump hot water caught up to the commercial world, or is that a viable solution at all?
I know.
Since we're doing heat pumps everywhere?
We started looking into it. There's still a little bit more investigation that I need to do. The manufacturer that I spoke to, they're not, those particular ones are not in the schools yet. They are commercial, so I mean, they are there. There is a couple of the issues is the upfront cost to have. Now you have all this added equipment on the roof. And then you also have, you need electrical resistance backup because you can't count on it completely for the hot water demand. So you, in addition to the equipment you need for that, you would also need the electric water heaters as a backup.
And they don't want to do like the instant heat water heaters where, like they're touting out a lot of the homes. So you don't have a tank anymore. They want to have a tank.
There are concerns with that, and it is a technology that's brought up a lot, is low flows.
Okay.
So they work great for higher flows, but when you have a single lavatory or a small use, it's not going to be able to get the hot water there on demand.
And I had another point. I'm picking on Minnetonka again, and I shouldn't. Beautiful school. They have the worst sinks. If they're the trough sinks, please don't do this. And I know we're not at design yet, but the space from the top to where you put your hands is about this wide. And you're trying to, especially during COVID, wash your hands, and it is disgusting. So let's just have real sinks, please.
I support that.
Thank you. You've been there?
Hands in.
So just a thought when we're going, we want to be able to put our hands under the sink without touching the sink when we're washing our hands.
Okay.
Okay. It can be trop. I don't care. I just don't. Deeper.
I'd like to use this opportunity to revisit a question. So we've held meetings with the departments and have a list of equipment that you all are currently using. It's important for the MSBA that we determine and as a committee vote if there's any equipment that you want specified that is proprietary and you don't want alternatives provided, because as a public project, we have to provide 3 equals for everything. So if there's something very strongly that you feel, you're committed to as a system. So this is often applied to, say, servers, or in your case, I noted that the security cam, you like the access system. Is that a system you are committed to maintaining, like proprietary? So that's the question for you two particularly.
EDC system.
Which one? Sorry?
Direct digital control system. The automation system needs to work with our other system. We don't want 2 separate platforms.
So.
What do you guys just?
And which system?
Structureware. It was Andover, but now it's Structureware bought them out.
You have the list.
We have that. Okay,
Yeah.
so.
I think what Dory is also queuing up here is at the next meeting, if we are sure on all of these things, and we are eliminating competition, right? So that's why it needs to be, that we will kind of knock through those. Yeah.
Be sure nothing's changed.
Yeah, exactly. Because
confirmed.
It is a commitment.
Yeah.
Is that something that we should send out for the next meeting?
We should probably recirculate the
And
list.
review the list?
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like you said, we have the Andover continuum system in every other building in town.
Yeah, that's
controlling every single school.
And that's the kind of logic MSBA wants to see in the vote, is that you have it sort of fits into the bigger picture. So, okay.
And Dory, sorry to take it another direction here, but you jogged my memory. That I believe is a town council vote that needs to happen. It's not building committee, is it?
No,
I don't
It's
think
building
so.
committee. All right.
It just has to be a
School
vote
committee.
for sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, but we can double check.
I'll double check. But
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
I seem to remember proprietary being at the city or the town council level. But we'll look into that. But regardless, we'll come up with a list and let you know how we need to get them approved.
Yeah, and we can, at the next meeting, maybe make that a goal just so it's taken care of.
It's okay, definitely.
I had it's not a plumbing question, but just a heating question, because you're talking about.
I know, they're awesome.
System. How does the automated system handle the cooling of one section and the heating of another section at the same time? Is that something that
the branch controller?
Branch control.
So the way heat pump works is it pulls the heat from one system.
So
for this
it's not something that we have to check in, say with DPW lines, doing it on a.
Yeah, so if somebody sets it to 68 and someone else is at 75,
It's
it'll.
gonna do it, yeah. Okay.
I'll say that we installed the exact source heat pump DOS system at Springfield Prep. If you ever wanted to check, that was 2.5 years ago, and it's been super trouble. That zoning capacity is actually really, really good, and that system is significantly simpler in terms of the BMS, but it's been very effective and surprisingly.
You were gonna say trouble-free, right? Not troublesome.
You just
Got cut off right at trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the proportional system that did it, right? The proportional dampers and stuff that are really.
Yeah, well, like those branch boxes, like on the residential side, use it to control different stuff.
Like that?
Yeah. Okay.
Then you could share.
There's thermostats in every
I'm gonna
adjustable
excuse myself.
thermostat.
I have a
There's only a
track banquet to go to.
4 degrees.
Oh.
Degrees typically, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe that's the system that
Does that?
this year is that there's a, the 4-degree range or.
not connected to the
classroom or. Is Andy still here?
Yes.
Andy?
Oh my God, it feels.
A question.
Will there be room, temperature control within a limited range?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can define a range.
Yeah, so
We can define it.
yeah, it's like a 4 to 8 degree capacity. So
We could change that.
you guys are already planning to.
We're gonna be hardwired the day we open it.
Okay, let's go. My siren.
Yeah, yeah.
We're getting all the plugs to work.
And
Crank the temperature. Yeah.
any
Thank you,
questions for engineers? If not, they can go to dinner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
What are you
you.
having for dinner?
Can we come?
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll try and
Go
race
fast.
through this.
All right, okay.
And we knew that this was going to happen. So,
And- yeah.
so we want to give you a quick update on the site plan and the really important factor. The obvious important factor here is the pool position. So we met as a pool committee prior to this, and that's why the plan is still black and white, because we've been pushing to incorporate that element. So it hasn't gotten colored out yet. But this is with a reconfiguration of the pool building to allow for that parking from behind, as well as drop off from the front, and kind of a good relationship to the basketball courts with circulation around it. The other thing this shows is the parking at Norden. I just want to mention, because it's been a sort of source of discussion. We're not allowing any circulation through the site, but we did agree to place some ADA parking spots there, and that would allow also an ambulance to be able to pull in the event of an injury. And
Can go no further. That's a walking.
Is it a turnaround, Dory?
it's a hammerhead turnaround.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because people will come down, and drop off. I can see people
Yeah.
dropping off there.
Yeah, I mean, the goal was to try and make it as
Discourage that.
Yeah,
I got you.
Discourage
Okay.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
That activity.
I did have one conversation with a resident. I think they are talking. I think you may have his contact information, so maybe I can send that picture out. Like when you have a chance, you can get me that. So they seemed, at least that individual seemed okay with it, and hopefully they're watching our meetings and know that it's there.
We did review it in the site focus this morning, and I know the police chief had questions about it, but once he realized it was handicap accessible spaces on only 3, he was like, oh, okay. I mean, I think he was okay with, but again, we want to make sure it goes through all the proper channels.
Right. And then you can't go any further. Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Yep.
Unless you're walking, then you can.
Correct. Good clarification.
So we'll go quickly through the plan updates, but we do have some new pretty images to show you. So a little candy for the end. Okay, there we finished up our this round of programming meetings with teacher and staff. So we've incorporated some input into the plans. We've also been working more on the building massings, which you'll see at the next meeting. But that's what's been shaping the plan moves. 3 kind of main shifts. We've reorganized the gym wing. The auditorium is more developed, and we've moved the monumental stair from back by the cafeteria to further up in the sequence. And we'll just look at that in the next slides. So this is the change at the gym wing. What we did was we pulled the gym mass towards the core. We switched its location with alt PE and weights. So those are now on that outside wall. This is helpful because it brings the gym closer to that entranceway, you have more of a connection from the main area into the gym, which was something we were hoping to do. We also get some exterior lights in alt PE, which is nice. And we're maintaining this relationship between gym, alt PE, and weights where there would be windows and doors between those spaces so you can monitor them easily from one staff position. We also, this shift works well with the updated pool plan and entrance lobby, which we reviewed at that previous meeting. But for those of you who aren't there, you can see the revised pool plan in gray on the right. So in this updated version, we have an entrance lobby connecting the pool and the gym. There'd be bathrooms off that lobby. There's also doors from both the north and the south side, so access from the parking lot. So we see this as a community entrance to the athletic wing. Okay.
The court is not centered. Is that purposeful? We're just have bleachers on one side.
Yeah, so that is currently we're showing all the bleachers on one side. It could be centered and you could have sides.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference?
I don't know. Do we? I hadn't really thought of it.
It's easier to control on one side, right? Crowd control. You have the back.
And you put the teams on the other side. Is that how it typically works?
Yeah, that's all.
Like one bench on the other side.
No.
It's same seating capacity either way.
Right, and in this configuration, that might provide a little more flexibility, access to the locker rooms. Otherwise, locker rooms have to enter on the corners.
You have less
I
banter.
see what you're saying. Yep.
Less banter between your fan sections.
Yeah.
Something.
I'm trying to think of a gym that only has them on one side.
Central. The old Central did. I don't know. They remodeled recently though.
Oh.
How what's typically done? This?
When we were at North Middlesex, that's an example of a one-sided.
Oh, yeah, North Middlesex,
Oh yeah, that was a bigger gym though. That was huge.
same size.
Yeah, it's the
No, North Middlesex, not West Springfield. That was much bigger. But
West Springfield.
North Middlesex was the size.
was 2 courts. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. Well, maybe
Yeah.
think about it. Yeah.
Get Kevin steak.
It's optional. We can.
Think about crowd management. All right, good.
All right, so for the auditorium, we've been having conversations with our theater consultant and also our acoustic consultant to try to get this fleshed out more for Vasti set. The drawings on the right show a preliminary auditorium layout. Some changes. We've now have access at the second floor to the control rooms. So that gives us a nice opportunity to raise those up and have the seating go all the way to the back. One kind of question or conversation that's been going on is how to view this theater, knowing that there is not a significant theater use currently, no theater program, but a lot of musical use. So something we've been thinking about is whether to view it a little bit more like a concert hall as opposed to a traditional high school theater. So make it really optimized for that sort of venue. That could mean removing the proscenium wall, the stage curtain wall, creating a more open space. Also toying with the idea of windows at the, maybe just a limited amount of windows at the upper level. If you're not needing to be blacking it out all the time, you would still have a blackout curtain as a possibility, but you could then have natural light.
I think I like that. I like how it looks. Yeah.
So
control the frost windows.
So it's the typical theater would have a wall between the stage and the auditorium, the seating, where you have the curtains coming here.
Oh yeah.
And the wall
Closes it out.
So
it hides all those dropping.
Yeah, the sidewall.
Allow all the theatrical changes.
Is this ground level? Thus, we're down below ground level.
So you come in. You would come in at ground level and then the seats slope up behind you. So if you kind of look at the floor plan.
Oh, this is the second floor of the building?
The second floor is it slopes up towards it.
So you actually come in at that middle
level.
That's right there.
I want to point.
Right.
I can't point.
Here.
Right.
Yeah. So
There
there
it
you
is. That's
go.
there it is. That's it.
That's where you're coming in, is in the middle, and then you have ramping down to the big front. But then those upper portions, you'd have a steeper incline up. and
Right, so the front is lower than ground level. This is ground level.
Correct. So you have your pit is
I see.
lower, and then the stage can be at ground level. So you can enter the stage
You're under at the top.
at the first floor.
Yeah, because the stage is ground level. Yeah, okay, yep. That's just like what we
Your control rooms on the second floor?
Yeah, so we've kind of shifted the plan, which you'll see in later slides, so that we now have an opportunity to connect at that second floor, which I think is nice because it just pulls us up above.
And concrete is good for,
Oh, that's not a rendering, that's just an image to show you that type of a
Size,
space
yeah.
and the possibility of daylighting. We're not interested in as much daylighting, it would just be that higher level, but it shows you a more open proscenium.
that's nice.
And it wouldn't eliminate drama, right? I mean,
No. It just wouldn't be, like, we've already talked about not having the fly space.
Yeah.
Lifting up screen.
But you still have a curtain that you can close and open, right?
You have some choices about how to do that, yeah.
Spartanum uses the curtain.
Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah. Okay. So here we have kind of an initial render looking at the entrance way coming in.
Frank,
So
jump in here, baby.
yeah, I want to just, point out that these are going to look a little bit austere. We don't have materials applied everywhere. We don't have, all of the detailing. So it feels a little bit like a white box. But we are trying to show some of the places where we'd be bringing in wood, like this, we've called out blue lamb beams in this entrance
You should
vestibule.
walk towards the light.
Yeah. So, and just to make sure so you come in the main entrance, the auditorium's on your right, the kind of guidance suites are on the left, and then you're walking up those stairs to get to the media center, which then is spanning across. Going underneath that, you get into the cafeteria area.
Is that the cafeteria straight ahead there? It is, okay.
And then the doors kind of under that wood ceiling get you to the LGI. So something that's nice with this shift with the media center and bringing the monumental stairs forward is that now when you come into the building, you have direct eyes to the auditorium, media center, cafeteria, LGI, the gym's right there now. Guidance is right there, student support services. So it's kind of all in one spot to go where you're going to go.
And this area right where we are standing, essentially where the camera is a generous enough area outside of the entry lobby, sort of a little beyond the intersection of the corridors, is an area where we've been thinking about placing some sort of gallery elements, some things that, student display. And when we met with with Beth and Mark Maccarini, we were also looking at the relationship to those two spaces and putting display as you enter. So we're thinking about things where the school could be celebrated or student work can be celebrated, things like that.
Can you put your art galleries?
Yeah, exactly. You could do art display or.
The media center is cut in half. Is that correct? The stairs go right into the middle of it?
They do. So you'd have.
Can you close it?
That's been a discussion about.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've talked about a couple different ways you could close it off potentially, creating sort of, a foyer into the media center, and then you would go through it. And yeah, it's definitely something to kind of explore further, because whether you want to have part of a media center that's closed off and part that's more open, or if it's all open and you just close it at the ends.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's definitely something to develop.
Yeah, we can show the sample and where you can circulate through it, and it's
open all the time.
Yeah. We are trying to be conscientious about noise and distractions. So it's not just a railing. We are putting walls, and whether that opening will go all the way up to the ceiling there, you might I don't know. The media center could be more closed off somewhat. You can go ahead to the next slide and we'll look at from the other side looking back. So this is with those big south facing windows behind us. Towards the cafeteria. Again, this is not a.
Now you're looking towards the front door.
Correct. You're looking towards the front door. just wanting to show some ideas. Again, this is not super developed, but that is the media center spanning above. So you have some visual connections, but you also would have that wide area of blank wall. It could be a projection area, so you could project onto that for events in the cafeteria to be able to see those punched openings on the right side on the upper level. We're envisioning just wanting to show some different options besides just having like a railing at a corridor above, but you could have something that's more of a punched opening. We're envisioning having like a counter height ledge with stools so people could stand there and work, and it deters people from getting too close.
Is that part of the media center as well?
That's part of the corridor.
That's the corridor.
The media center. Culinary arts we've relocated to be and just that lower right hand where you see that. Yep. So that's culinary arts, and that was because we've heard how they there's some interest in being able to sell products at the cafeteria, to have some sort of interface there. So
competition.
Only when the cafeteria is in operation. No competition.
Well, yes, right.
So this is, some potential that, it might not look just like that, but you would have some connection between the cafeteria and culinary. And LGI is off to the left. So again, you're having a lot of, yep, that's LGI. So a lot of connections.
Group instruction.
And then there's
oh yeah,
the thinking is underneath the stairs is space to create other seating opportunities. So not everything is just a big open space. So looking at ways we can use both underneath the media center and then under the stairs to create other seating opportunities.
These are regular stairs at the end here on the left.
Yep, there's stairs that are wrapping up to the academic. I think if you go to the
is that a solid wall too here on the stairs?
So it is shown as a solid wall right now.
So noise wise.
Right. It's creating a buffer. And that's something that we've been trying to be mindful of as we're developing things forward. If you want to go ahead to the next one, this is focused on the academic wing specific.
Excuse me.
That we've the ground floor is at the bottom, second floor is above. So we have, blocking off that stair is starting to create some layers between the academic wings and the cafeteria to the west. We've reduced before we had two hallways going directly into the cafeteria from the west, and we've reduced it to one so we can close that off. On the east wing, we've shifted the classrooms around a little bit so that none of the doorways from classrooms are going directly into the cafeteria. They're all somewhat removed. That was another effort to be able to kind of create that separation. And then, of course, there would be significant acoustic treatments at the cafeteria to reduce sound in that area. Some other things we've done in the academic wings, we've rearranged our bathrooms and teacher planning. That was something we heard in the conversations, that there needs to be supervision from the teacher planning to the bathrooms. So we've arranged things to facilitate that. Also kind of consolidated and streamlined our small group spaces, and I think improved our connections to outside where we have these notches at the corners, and so it's a little bit different from how it was before. We've also relocated the tech support to outside the media center from being in the district office wing. So that's the student facing part of that. And here you can see the corridor does pass through the media center, but we do see that as, it helps the media center can be divided into different zones, and one can be more of stacks and one could be more open meeting space. So you have potential to use that to support that program. So if we go ahead, we have one more look. So we've been showing you these tapered classroom wings with the stairs at the end. So this is a view looking from that end back towards the center of the building. This is where on the second floor. So we have this monitor letting in natural light above. And Here, you're starting to see a little bit more attention to the materials, which Dory is going to talk about in the next slides. But just to give you a sense of how that classroom wing can work, you can see some of the informal student gathering space, small group space where the wall jogs, and then there'd be some enclosed small group space as well that would be glazed for people to see in.
Are those little alcoves code for the doors so they don't open into the hallway? Is that?
It's not. Yes, I mean that is what they're there for, is to keep them from entering into the hallway
by doors all the time.
Yeah.
It also provides a sort of a portal into those two rooms.
So just as a part of this cost estimate, of course, we want to define and identify materials, and it's way too early to be selecting colors or thinking terribly deeply about
Not picking out drapes yet? Picking out drapes yet?
Picking out drapes, not quite there yet. But we do have, now that the plan's in place, have some pretty strong feelings about where we want to try and think about the different feelings that we're creating with different materials. And floor finish is, a very expensive element of the project and very important for maintenance and very important for defining the impact. So looking at the plan that you've seen over and over and over again, there's this kind of divide between the community space. You enter, there's the cafeteria, the gym, the auditorium. That's a very public space. You expect a lot of high traffic there. But the plan really takes you then ultimately to these academic communities. And the thinking we have here is that we really want to be sure that we have, durable, cleanable, materials up in that high traffic area. So we would typically expect to put porcelain tile in that entry area and use the terrazzo. Terrazzo used to be something you see a lot of in school, but very expensive now. So unfortunately not as available to this project as we would like, but we do often use that on that main stair, which is a really high traffic area and you want it to look good. Our other stairs would have rubber. So that's the difference. So you have this kind of move between solid surfaces and resilient materials. So that's the other thinking that we have in that high traffic public space is wanting to use wood as an accent to meet with the community's interest in like warming and softening it so it doesn't feel, cold. So, but we would typically actually put that above. So as Jill was showing those beams, we still have in the budget, those glue lamp beams, wood handrail trim, things like that, things that are not being walked on except in the gymnasium. And in this project at the moment, we're going to hold wood at the auditorium stage because we're thinking of that as more of a multi-purpose space and less of a black box kind of space. And then alt PE, we also have a wood floor there. And those are cushioned wood floors.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. And then on the academic side, we typically go with a linoleum and rubber in the science labs because of its ability to handle chemicals. Carpet is still a part of schools, used in the media center, in offices, small group spaces, and all those things help to really shift the kind of the sense of those spaces as being, study spaces, focused spaces. And if you go to the next page, you see generally some of how that lays out in plan. And these plans are a color diagram showing you where those typical materials go. So in the gym, you've got the wood, that's that orange color of the stage as well. The pink reflects the porcelain tile. So that's all the circulation in the front part of the school and in the main core. And then shifting after you go through the doors into the academic wings, we quiet down a little bit with the linoleum and rubber finishes. Bathrooms, we do a ceramic tile on floor and wall. We would suggest, and then individual rooms have unique needs. So the STEM lab we think should be rubber. The band would typically have linoleum, but the chorus might have carpet, and that's because band members tend to spit a lot.
Their mouths.
So you just think those two things. So this is
I've been there. I'm a trombone player. I've been there.
One thing we've been talking about, thinking again about the concern about sound is we often put quarry tile in the kitchen, but for this project we were thinking about epoxy resin instead because still moppable, super durable, but doesn't have the sound of the click, 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 click every time you roll something across the floor. So we're trying to look for different ways we can, really address all of our needs here.
And you'd say no to concrete in the main areas?
We talked, actually, we had talked about it. Concrete, and we do have concrete in the project in some of the more hard surface areas, like art, often culinary, custodial for sure. Places that you used to use VCT, we really don't use VCT anymore. But we're open to it. It is a possibility. I'm going to mention some value engineering possibilities there as well. But concrete, we have used concrete in those major areas, but it does crack, and people, I don't mind it. To make it look interesting, sometimes you want it polished or put a special surface, which gets pretty expensive. And the cracking does often offend some people. It's really hard to get a very, very perfect concrete floor.
Right. We did it at Plains. I don't know how it's holding up. You've probably been there more recently.
Yeah.
It's harder to get the level of finish that you would expect as your first material that you're seeing in your brand new school.
I will say in other parts of the country, it's much more common because, but I think it's partially because of our temperature changes. And it's still hard for people to get a good concrete floor to work in.
Yeah, it's one thing that's certain, concrete does crack. I don't care what you do. I mean,
unless you can incorporate it into your design.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right.
And or you put enough of the right admixtures and you do it in the right, but then you densify the surface and then you get a more perfect. But the cost there becomes such that you're at the same price point, So, and then moving forward, so other finishes. So somewhat of a similar approach. Generally, our thinking is that, we would probably be using porcelain ceramic tile as a wainscot. Everybody argues about the word there in the front areas. But then once we get into the academic wings, we're thinking of going to a wood panel. So again, kind of quieting down, becoming a little bit warmer in the academic wings. And then ceramic tile in the bathrooms. And sometimes we use that ceramic tile also, that's your more standard tiles for accent color. So we might use that also in entries to classrooms and places like that.
How tall is the wainscoting typically?
Typically below the fire pole. Below,
fire pole,
keep it below those ADA kind of requirements. So it's 32 typically, I think, roughly 36 we've been working on it currently.
Toilet rooms, have we designated a height for ceramic tile yet?
We probably didn't get to that level of detail yet. And, they would have assumed, at least a door height, top of door. Yeah. So that's one of those things that as we go through the process, sometimes you'll say, okay, geez, we're worried about budget. We'll just do the plumbing wall in the individual bathrooms, but in the gang bathrooms, we want it on every wall.
Yeah.
So those are all the little ways that you try and get the best you can. But if you have to, you might cut it down to just the plumbing walls. I'll go to the next slide. Actually, that might help because that's where I was going to say these are some of the ways if we're already concerned, we would prefer to carry the plans I'm showing you, those decisions, but it isn't unusual for the possibility to, take the terrazzo away and go with rubber. Terrazzo is much longer lasting. So everything is really about durability in the long run, really. Replace the porcelain ceramic tile with linoleum or VCT or LVT. Doesn't hold up as well in those super high traffic areas, so not recommended. The stage wood, we can go with an MDF or a type of wood that is just painted black. And that can be a cost savings. In this case, we thought it actually might be better to stay with wood because of the type of auditorium we're doing, because we're not spending as much money on curtains, frankly. So we might as well, get a nice looking floor out of this. All PE wood. Sometimes all PE, they prefer that to be a rubber. It depends on the uses. So we're going to revisit that and find out because there's been a lot of different demands on that room.
Yeah.
So we want to revisit.
But wood in the main gym.
Yeah. And wood is the higher budget line, and it's often you can do yoga, you can do a lot of things. But if you're and it's got the give for cheer, it really works for everything. But there are some times where there's a reason why they'd prefer not to have wood. So we'll
Rubber in the spot.
wall finishes, as I said, porcelain, ceramic tile, and wood. And then we also have acoustic panels on the walls in a lot of areas, and we'll certainly be placing those in the cafeteria and the music rooms. And then ceilings, primarily it's 2x2 grid, but as a cost, and we have that faux wood ceiling concept there at that cafeteria to sort of warm that up a little bit. And that's something that has a higher price point. That's why we're trying to concentrate on a place you're seeing it. And then, we might keep an eye on those prices as we go.
How much do we save if we do all these things?
If you take them.
Like roughly, I
can't have that number. You probably could, but I can't, because it's,
Well, if we're talking millions, if we're talking tens of thousands.
We're talking, we'll be.
Millions?
Not talking.
Not talking.
No.
And honestly, what you don't want to do is start there, because these are the relief valves as something happens with the mechanical system that you have no choice about.
Less than $500,000 difference.
We're not going to commit, Greg, but here's
No, but that's it. Then we go with all the good finishes. That's what I'm saying. If it's,
I think what Dory's saying, let's go into the cost estimating exercise. And this is the meeting, before we're going to submit to estimators, because next time we're going to look at exterior materials.
Right.
So we want to confirm with this group, this is what we're going in with. And here are some relief valves if we find the need that we have to pare back.
Yeah. We just want you to know that, yes, we're thinking about it. We're not so overcommitted to anything, but we're always trying to, reflect the maintenance and the impacts that these finishes have.
Long-term maintenance too. Like you said, you go with wood for a wood floor, you can sand it, refinish it.
Right.
Go with like you said, manufactured, you can't sand it. It is what it is. You got to replace it. So there's some give and take.
It's always the first cost.
Right.
Ability.
Right.
It's over time.
Right.
Good question.
I think we have one more. The community for us. That's it. The last slide is Victoria, and we always feel so bad because we haven't spent time reviewing.
I don't really see her.
She's gone now.
I'm so sorry we kept you so late. We knew it was going to be.
We've gone.
No, I'm here. I'm sorry. This is,
Nice job. How'd it hang in there?
in all honesty, my baby had a meltdown, so she's
I was
with
just
me.
going to say, she's probably with the baby.
Oh,
There you go.
Now she's with the baby on.
Oh, baby.
oh, hey.
That's right. We're recorded. Well, hi, Grace. Bye, Grace.
Hi, Grace.
This is our pamphlet here. This is the third issue. We wanted to include some frequently asked questions. So you'll see that on the second page there. And we also included the links to the May community forum and presentation, because that had a lot of great information in there. So we're just hoping to direct people to those if they missed it. We're also working on a larger master FAQ to add to the project website. But I think today we just wanted to ask if any committee members had suggestions for our upcoming pamphlet at the end of this month, and just get some general feedback on this.
Do we do more visuals in the next one?
it's a lot of text. We'll have to assess them.
Yeah, well, we did so much visual today.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it could be for sure. Yeah. The real polished imagery is really not going to come until later in the summer.
More outline of the campus.
I think, that's like.
So that way.
Yeah.
We're getting it out to the community.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. Also, just in terms of, it is true, we will invest time after we get through the deadline of the boring documents that we have to do the pretty ones that the community will understand. It was really great to see everyone's reaction to just anything 3D. Right. So if there are things that specifically you think the community is going to find really important, it's good for us to know so we can.
Yeah. If we can get more visuals out to them, now, so that's can be something they're talking about in the summer. Because there's now a hiatus before we get back at this. when we get back at this, we're going to be in mode.
Yeah, I would say that July is the best window for us to start really.
Yeah. July, August
polishing
for sure.
images.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just thinking, when do you get? I mean, do you do that at National Night Out?
Yeah, so by August.
Actually,
we should have
Yeah,
seen
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, you get that emotional reaction that you want.
2 tenths. Just 2 tenths.
2 tenths. Whoa. Come on now.
Yeah, and also I believe there were ideas to have a community type forum recorded and publish that in lieu of an in-person forum because of worry of attendance in summer. So to that point, maybe we can queue that up for end of July or potentially right after National Night Out, like mid-August. But that's something we can think about as well.
You even do a podcast, just bringing the frequently asked questions to life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mac's got a whole podcast series going.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd be happy to help you out in any way you need.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We did get a question today to the website.
We did, yes, and I will. It's the first part of his question. It's very easy to answer. I can provide that, and then we'll brainstorm on the other part.
Got it.
One of the other questions that had come up is a breakdown on if we don't do this project and we have the 100 million.
Question we just received.
That's the
Is
question.
that the one?
Yeah.
I think it's important that we lay that out and that these are the things that will cost this much. And this is when they'll have to be done and actually show what that $100 million is in detail. I think that'll get us a long way with people.
Right.
It was also,
there's price escalation. The longer you
yeah.
because you know, capital planning takes time. For instance, the modulars that were approved 2 years ago
2 years taking me
are just now at Mountain View, possibly going to break ground when they open the bids in July.
I talked with Rich Ricciero about, he said that we need to get out to his age people. I said, how do you do that? He said we need a reminder article.
Okay.
So I think
we did have one off the May 18th.
We should write one in the letter of the editor or however they want to do it. But I think, and if we could get a good picture or two that just grabs people, the sooner we can get the information out, people still don't know we have a vote in November. So we got to keep pushing. I know it's summer, but
we agree.
Who covers this on Meadow from a media perspective best? You know, when you really start pushing.
The reminder covers
Reminder?
the school department the best.
And that demographic reads it.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the whole town actually reads
Yeah. Some people read it cover to cover.
I read it cover.
Are we worried about that demographic?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, is that a
I think we are.
more towards yes or more towards?
Sure right now.
Okay.
I think we got to get the information out to the whole town.
Right.
And they're the ones, they vote.
Right.
They were there. They were the 600 people that showed up for the town election. Right.
Sorry, guys, I have yet another meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We should work on that.
Thank you.
That's fine.
I know another question that came up at the last forum was more pointed to tax and ballot, there was a question from a gentleman on if any tax, I'm looking for the word and I can't think of it, but.
Yeah, if there were any bonds retiring, I think is what you're getting at with. So I think that was, really important. I don't know if everybody remembers.
What's coming off the long-term debt?
Yeah,
I think that was his.
I don't think
I think Birchland just came off.
It's off already.
That's huge.
I think
It's 2000.
maybe we can.
Yeah, it was a 20-year note.
The town about and maybe have some of those answers.
It's constantly changing,
Right.
especially in water and sewer.
Right, and that's a great point, though,
it's
because that's what Paul Gagliarducci was speaking to.
That's who he's talking
was that,
yeah.
He's the one who brought it up.
Yeah, I forgot the name. Thank you.
Yeah.
All I was saying is that to that point, is that it shifts. It's not going to be 18 or 20 for the 30 years.
Right.
And for the first few years, you may not see the impact.
Right.
Just enjoying the school.
Well, like you
So
said.
you are going to see it. As soon as we open the door, you're going to see it. We won't see it this year or next year, but the year it's open, we'll see it. Yeah.
It's like,
it's all relative, Gordon. Council on Aging is 328 North Main. I just looked it up just so everybody knows.
Thank you.
I'm sure you can Google it anyway, but
thank you.
Thanks.
it's a nice place.
Okay.
That is it.
Maria, are you all set?
Yes. Yes, I'm just thinking maybe we can talk about it with our smaller group at our next meeting and maybe at our next SBC meeting, come up with or talk about it separately and come up with a plan for what that virtual recorded forum looks like, and a date that we might want to work on putting that together.
Okay.
Or podcast.
Yeah, or podcast or
Podcast.
we all go into the LCAT studio.
Yep.
I think that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Kind of like what we used to do.
Yeah, the updates. We did COVID up. Was it COVID? Yeah, COVID updates. Yeah. Gordon and I would sit at the table.
That's right.
People appreciated that
Yes.
too.
Got the information. Yeah.
And then got picked up on syndicated for a while. Serious.
Yeah.
Or anything for our parade in the middle of summer?
In terms of what?
Oh, Tyne's at his parade meeting right now, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a big picture of this beautiful thing.
Big picture of the high school.
Wait,
Definitely.
is that a conflict?
Contract to do it.
Greg has the flow.
Wait,
We just have to put the picture.
is that a conflict of interest though if we?
What?
So the model, now we're talking, Don.
I think that might be more appropriate to have the yes, ELHS, maybe do a flow.
Good point.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about that. Come on, we're way over. And let me worry about it. We could do it
I'm
on.
the warrior in the room.
Let me worry about
Just
it.
a picture?
No, we should do something. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, we can't
Figure it out.
Walk
I don't know
handing
if
out
we do a
QR
model.
code.
Yeah.
Can I make this?
Shriners Hospital, I said, like a big model of the hospital.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What are you doing next week? How goes your weekend, Jill?
Well, I'm just thinking instead of the red, white, and blue, whatever we have, like twirlers or things.
Well, even
Here better be, how about we spit out the dimensions and the engineering students build the model for you? Quarter scale.
They're going on.
where at our school?
Yeah.
Tomorrow's the last day of school.
Okay.
We might even keep it simple, Gordon. No, just
Tomorrow's Friday?
just at the votes come.
Tomorrow's last day of school.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Goodness.
Or you just, well,
Have to.
yeah, or, one of the pictures we have.
Yeah.
Ryan can do posters.
Oh,
Good.
Plotter. Give it to Plotter. He's got a
That's a
plotter.
good thought.
everybody's got plotters.
Yep.
Yep, we used
Or
to
we could
plot.
all make T-shirts of the high school.
Oh.
Yeah,
And that's what we do.
we can each wear a letter. Oh, yes.
Yes.
We all stand together.
Yeah.
That might be,
But something with.
might be going over the.
I was
All
just
right.
thinking that.
But just do vote.
We can't say vote.
Yeah.
All we can do
We
is
can
high school.
say anything.
I thought you said vote, you just can't say yes or no.
I think that's gonna
Yes.
be really important.
Yes. Oh, November 7th.
Yeah. 'Cause I know that there's some negativity coming along with like, this is gonna cost a lot of money, but we have a lot of people who want the new high school.
Right.
I'm just concerned that we have 2 people essentially per household that will vote yes. We just have to make sure they get out to vote yes.
That's the key.
Remember
Have to
the
vote.
track, we went for alternates.
Yep.
We went for the votes, but then the last day was school and then they had the special vote or whatever. the heck it was. No, remember all the alternates for the stadium, the fence, the bleachers, all that stuff. And then school got out
Yes.
and no one went and voted. And it
Vote
went,
was
no,
after
we're
school
all
was out.
standing and go, oh my God, how are we going to finish this project? Because everybody, like you said,
We're still
school let
working.
out and yeah.
We're still working on finishing.
Well, I try to
Just
put
a-
out at the water cannons today if we're doing everything.
we actually got the water cannons?
No, I piped it all to the fence.
Yeah.
It just got to go 10-foot stick and you're connected. Yeah, that's 11 years ago.
Yeah, I know, right? Wow.
Okay.
Anyways,
Any more on communication update? Nope. Okay, good. New business? Nope. Hearing none. Do we have a quorum to adjourn?
I think we did just want to, sorry, I think at least 7 or 8 of you responded to your availability for Thursday, the 29th, which seems like it works. So as long as we're good, we'll set that up.
Yeah. I think
everybody in this room responded. So
Don, does that work for you too? Did you check, was that Don in the loop?
Actually, Don was not in the loop. Don, we're trying to set up
a school building committee Thursday, the 29th.
June.
Not next week, week after.
Yeah, as far as I know. I mean,
You could
figure it was out there somewhere.
you can bump it earlier if you want.
Yeah, there's.
3 o'clock.
That works pretty easy.
I mean, we're not doing a pool, right?
No,
Yeah, because school's out, so.
No. Alice Cooper is playing.
Yeah, I'm hearing it too.
You want to do 3 o'clock, the 29th?
Yes.
Did Steve say he could do it?
That's here, that's this.
That's here.
Correct.
Steve did not respond. I'll shoot him a text after this.
3 p.m. Okay. Okay, take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Pam was ready to take it.
I was ready to second it.
Okay.
Got your back there.
Roll call vote. Steve's gone. I'm gonna say yes. Pam,
Yes.
Frank's gone. Heather?
Yes.
Not here. He's gone. Bruce?
Affirmative.
I wonder if you don't have a.
Danny?
Yep.
Greg?
Yes.
Adjourn.
Can't leave.
Right?
Kim's on. Kim? Yes. Thank you for hanging in there. Did Tom leave?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
All right. I'm feeling that this is a quorum.
Yeah. Sounds good, Gordon.
Thank you.
Thank you.